freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your recap episode for this week's Charles Schwab Challenge. Joining me to break it all down, Greg DuCharme is here. Hello, Greg.
Good afternoon, boys. I hope everybody's enjoying the Memorial Day weekend. As we always say, what a week. Normally that is filled with enthusiasm and smiles, and it's a very positive thing. Unfortunately, in this instance, there's a lot more to it than that this week.
There is, and we will talk about that here in just a moment or two. Kyle Porter is here. KP, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to be back. I was on a little vacation post PGA and got back dialed in Saturday, Sunday. And it's been like Greg said, it's been a really crazy, bizarre, sad weekend, but also some fun golf to watch as well.
Yes, that was the whole gamut of emotions. I do actually want to break through the fourth wall and continue a conversation that we just had on HQ, which is about the Triple Crown of golf, which is winning the U.S. Open, the Open Championship, and the Canadian Open in one year. I randomly threw that out to Kyle. I was like, I think there's been like two guys who have ever won it. He was like, I'm pretty sure it's Tiger and Lee Trevino. He is correct. Congratulations, Kyle.
Am I really?
Yeah, Lee did it in 1971. Tiger did it in 2000. And then there are 6 total players to carry the career Triple Crown, so winning it at some point in their career. So those two, Rory, Arnold Palmer, Walter Hagen, Tommy Armour.
It's a great trio. Like, it's a really interesting Canadian Open history is really good. Didn't envision we'd be talking Canadian Open off the top here, but it's a really cool national open. And I'm glad I got that right on live television.
We're going to get to the Canadian Open next week. For this week, Texas, the event, the Charles Schwab Challenge, of course, overshadowed, unfortunately, by the loss of Grayson Murray. There was a couple of items from this morning, from Sunday. The players did wear tribute pins in the shape of red and black ribbons. That was to honor Grayson, who always wore red and black on Sundays. It was a tribute to his NHL's Carolina Hurricanes. That's his favorite team. And then we did get a statement from Grayson's parents, Eric and Terry. The entire statement is up on PGAtour.com. It has been tweeted out by the PGA Tour. You can find this. We're showing it on the screen right now. I'll just read it in its entirety. We have spent the last 24 hours trying to come to terms with the fact that our son is gone. It's surreal that we not only have to admit it to ourselves, but that we also have to acknowledge it to the world. It's a nightmare. We have so many questions that have no answers, but one. Was Grayson loved? The answer is yes. By us, his brother Cameron, his sister Erica, all of his extended family, by his friends, by his fellow players, and it seems by many of you who are reading this. He was loved and he will be missed. We would like to thank the PGA Tour and the entire world of golf for the outpouring of support. Life wasn't always easy for Grayson, and although he took his own life, we know he rests peacefully now. Please respect our privacy as we work through this incredible tragedy, and please honor Grayson by being kind to one another. If that becomes his legacy, we could ask for nothing more. Thank you. That's the statement. It's in its entirety, Greg. So that is confirmation that the worst that we thought is true. Grayson did take his own life.
Which is just an absolute tragedy. It is terrible news. It is heartbreaking. He has been very open about it in the past, how he has struggled with anxiety and depression and, many mental health issues, which is quite frankly an epidemic in our country and around the world, really for over a decade now, about a decade and a half. It has been a serious epidemic, and it's one that as a society we really need to get a handle on. There are times when it makes a lot more sense than for a professional athlete. Somebody like Grayson, who, while he had his struggles, it seemed like he was so much moving in the right direction. It seemed like everything in his life was coming together. It seemed like he was grateful for it. It seemed like he was, finding happiness. But I guess it points out that these things are a lot more complicated than they appear when you're watching on television. And so certainly our thoughts and prayers are with the Murrays and everybody close to Grayson, everybody that knew him. It's nice to see all the, I mean, you wish it was under better circumstances, but it's nice to see all the support that he's received. He received a lot of support as well in a much more positive light at the Sony Open when he won this year. And a lot of this stuff that was coming out was extremely positive about him, which, in a strange way, only makes it harder.
There were plenty of stories and sharing of experiences and moments with Grayson from other players and caddies across not only the broadcast, but also across social media over the course of the past day or so, KP. And I think what Greg mentioned is probably my biggest takeaway. And I think both of you guys are really thoughtful in scenarios like this. It's easy to look at someone like Grayson Murray and say, he's a professional athlete. He plays golf for a living. How could anything be wrong? And that is an example of things, as Greg said, just being much more complicated and somebody fighting a battle that nobody might know about.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think there's two things that stand out to me. Well, there's a lot of things that stand out, but two in particular about this situation. One, kind of what you just said, Rick, is and this got referenced quite a bit, and I'm glad it did. That's a really, like, the life that Grayson Murray was living and the life that almost all these guys are living is not, it's hard. And I don't mean like making a bunch of money playing golf is hard, but I do mean emotionally, from the standpoint of like being by yourself a lot and traveling a lot and not really having roots and kind of being unmoored from a community for half the year or more or whatever. That's like, that does not in any way get made up for by how much money you make. Right. And so I think this is a reminder of how difficult that life is. But it's also a reminder, man, Peter Malnati said something. This was my second thing on Saturday evening. He gave an unbelievable interview to Amanda Balionis, and people should go watch it. But he said something like, he was in tears, and he said, I don't want to misquote him, but so I'll just give like a sort of a high level summary. He said, man, he was just playing like, so his golf was so good. He was playing such good golf. And it was almost like, this, and I don't know what Malnati meant about it, but it was almost like this implication of like, not even success in your work is fulfilling or is satisfying. Like it's still, you still like can feel clearly like an emptiness there. And I thought that was such a moment of clarity and insight by somebody who had literally just played with him, that nothing, no material possessions, no achievement. I mean, Grayson Murray won on the PGA Tour this year. He had made millions of dollars this year. He was, like you said, living the life of a he was a top 60 player in the world, right? He was really, really, really successful. But the implication there when Malnati said that, I was just like, man, that is such a great reminder that not even like our achievement or our success can fulfill or satiate like the things inside of us that long for kind of more than that. And obviously it's tragic and horribly sad, but that was one thing that I will remember for a very long time.
If you're feeling this way, there are resources. We encourage you to try to find any help in any place that you can. We're going to put the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline information in the description of this podcast. It's for the United States. Or you can go to 988lifeline.org. And hopefully hopefully it's unnecessary and unneeded, but if so, a valuable resource. We're going to recap the Charles Schwab Challenge. We're going to proceed here as the guys on the course did to finish up a championship. We are going to proceed with recapping said championship. We're going to reset. We're going to take a break, and we're going to see you on the other side.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
And we're back. Let's talk about the final round of the Charles Schwab Challenge, which, gentlemen, entered as a two-horse race, not only from the two guys playing in the final group, the way their scores, the way their stats, the way their careers, their seasons were going, but also in the eyes of Las Vegas, basically a coin flip between the two guys, Scottie Scheffler and Davis Riley, in that final group with really no odds, tangible odds, that anybody else was going to win this golf tournament. So let's start there. And Greg, immediately out of the gate, both Scottie Scheffler and Davis Riley didn't really make much noise. Now, Colonial did play difficult, about 2.25 shot over par, but it was just a struggle to get any momentum going, specifically for Scottie Scheffler, who did not take advantage of the easy par 5 first that was playing significantly downwind, the short par 4 second, which Colin Morikawa almost drove the green on. And by the time they had played 5 holes, Scottie Scheffler had not only played those at 2 over, but Davis Riley extended his lead by another stroke.
Yes. I thought the one instance, this is exactly what you needed if you were Davis Riley. If Scottie Scheffler goes out there and makes birdie at 1 and 2, as many players did, that was a very gettable stretch. Like you mentioned, if Scottie Scheffler goes out and makes birdie at those opening 2 holes, the world's going really fast for Davis Riley. Right? Things change quickly because all of a sudden you feel like you're losing. But he gets through that, and like you said, Rick, has extended the lead. And that just, all of a sudden, you've checked off a third of the round, and you got a bigger lead now. So you got 2/3 of the round left, and you're up 5 shots. You know, that is and now the way that you tack the golf course is completely different. You're into the round. You know what your swing feels like. You know what you have to do to keep Scottie off of you, which is really just don't make a huge mistake, because it was really difficult to make birdies. You know, Scottie couldn't really get the ball in the fairway. He couldn't get it close to the flag. He couldn't give himself any realistic looks. Felt like the great shots that Scottie Scheffler hit were coming out from underneath the tree in the rough, running it up to the front edge of the green, leaving himself 25 feet. And it's really hard to lean on that kind of performance when on this golf course, you can only get it from the fairway. I mean, I've studied so many of these rounds this week, and Davis Riley included. On Saturday, he hits a bunch of fairways in the early going, hits his first 7 greens because he hit all those fairways. Then he starts missing fairways, and guess what? You start missing greens. And then it becomes a scramble test, and that's the situation that Scottie Scheffler was in the 4th round.
I see 2 things here, KP, when I look at this start. One, we referenced on our lead-in coverage on HQ, which as the final group was getting, I don't know, maybe they had 3 or 4 holes done. There was no pressure applied, which is what we were waiting for. We were waiting for number 1 player in the world, Scottie Scheffler, to get off to that hot start and apply the pressure to Davis Riley and see if his game could hold up. And to Greg's point, the reason that the pressure never came is because Scottie's like chipping out every single hole, or he's just trying to bunt a 7-iron and run it up to the front of the green. There is little aggression in these holes that are being played. He's not taking command of the golf tournament. He's playing it from a more defensive position.
Yeah, I was just looking. Yeah, okay. So he hit 7 fairways on Sunday, and only 1 in his first 8 holes. Right. And I think that you see that on his card. I mean, Scottie's so good because every facet of his game is extraordinary. He's the best driver in the world. He's the best approach player in the world. He's like 2nd in strokes gained around the green this year in 2024, that's insane. And he's a good, mostly putter. He has bad stretches, but I think he's like I would call him an above average putter, sometimes good, not elite, but solid. And when the first, I mean, we all know this from playing our own golf. If the first thing in that sequence is not working, it's so hard to score. And on a day where the wind was, I mean, I didn't realize this, but I think it played 3 over par in the afternoon wave, is what Joe Musso said on HQ, which is that's a really hard guy. That's way harder than Valhalla was last week. And he just all that to say, like, he didn't set himself up to score because he missed so many fairways. And I think the underrated part, I don't know if it's underrated, but I think one of the key parts of his last 3-month run is that he just hits not every fairway, but he gives himself so many opportunities, and he just didn't do that at all on the front nine. And listen, like, you take a 5-shot lead to the back nine, it's kind of hard to lose it. You take a 2-shot lead to the back nine, different ballgame. Like Greg said, things start moving quickly, the world starts spinning, and you can lose that in a hurry.
Couple things. My Russell Henley wager from a couple of years ago would like to have a word with your, it's pretty easy to win with a 5-shot lead on the back nine, because Russell Henley coughed one of those up at about 40 to 1.
I mean, if Scotty was as good as Hideki, then maybe he would have.
But you're absolutely right to point out the conditions got incredibly more difficult over the course of the day. The morning wave 1.3 over par, the afternoon wave 3.1. Brutal stuff.
That's a lot.
That's nasty. And Greg, you mentioned looking through the results of how to take apart this golf course, or at least find success in this golf course. The relationship between hitting greens and where your drive ends up is so strongly correlated here, unlike other golf courses. So not only is Scotty missing a fairway is one thing, that significantly hinders your ability to find the putting surface.
Real quick,
Yes.
before I want to hear Greg, but can you tell me A, why that is, Rick, and B, like, where it ranks in terms of PGA Tour courses in correlation?
So I probably don't have it handy at the moment, but it would be like your harbor towns, your pebble beaches, your places with, really thick rough, because there are some courses where missing a fairway is not penal. Think Detroit Golf Club, something like that, where you're just going to play out of a little bit of rough. It's not a big deal. You're not going to have trees in your way. So your second shot is not necessarily as tied to your tee shot, because wherever your tee shot ends up, you're going to have a pretty good look at the green. You're going to have the ability to get it there. With the way that Colonial plays, because you've got the trees everywhere and you've got that rough, because you're missing fairways, you're not having access to these greens, which is the same at, Harbor Town or something of that nature. And then Greg, what you can also, I'm sure, elaborate on a lot better, that's always been the case. But the conditions of this week where those greens were so firm and bouncing so hard that if you're not able to apply spin to your golf ball, and you couldn't do it out of the rough, you just have no chance of holding the green. So even if you hit an unbelievable second shot, because of what you've done with your first shot, you're probably not hitting that green.
Right. And this is like a really rare case. The trees are one thing and definitely played a factor, but the spin's the biggest factor that I see. Like, looking through just round after round after round on ShotLink, well, guys are hitting it a foot into the rough, and you can't hit the green. And part of that, Kyle, is like, if you look at Valhalla last week, the rough was a lot longer than it was this week. I know Bermuda doesn't have to be as long, but it's a lot less daunting of a task to hit it out of the rough we had this week than last week. But because the greens are so firm, you can't land the ball on the green. At Valhalla, you could. You land it on the green, it would stop, no matter what you're coming out of, because the greens are receptive. Here, they're not. So, even from the fairway, you look at Colin Morikawa's shot into 18 today. From the fairway with a sand wedge, it bounces 15 feet and then stops. If that's out of the rough, it bounces 15 feet and then bounces 12 feet on the next one. And so you're in this place where, okay, I have to land it short of the green. Now the bunkers come in and they pinch into a narrow gap in front of the green. So I got to thread the needle. I got to land it short, and I got to judge the bounce in the fairway proper just to get it on the green. And it is a totally unique style and concept that I thought was fascinating to watch. We do not get this on the PGA Tour. It's hard to replicate these conditions.
It was interesting. I noticed how firm it was. Does it hurt guys? This is pretty, I guess, a technical thing, but you mentioned the rough wasn't as thick. Is it almost like sometimes harder when it's a little thinner because you get like flyer shots?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Like bent grass or bluegrass, ryegrass, fescue, things like that are a little easier to judge the lie. The bladed grass kind of holds the ball up. You can tell, all right, this is sitting up. This is going to go forever. You can get a very good feel for it. When you get in that Bermuda when it's sitting down, it's almost like every lie is a jumper unless you just don't quite catch it right. The slight mishit, and all of a sudden it comes out completely dead. So that north-south or long and short delta is enormous. And it's a lot bigger than the green is at its depth. So, right. So like Scotty Scheffler at number 10 doesn't get it over that hazard, right? That should never be in play. And he's trying to play a low shot, right? He does have tree trouble, but he either misjudges it or it doesn't come out the way he expects. And all of a sudden, I mean, that's a shot a 20 handicap wouldn't expect to hit in there. But that's just the difficulty in judging how it's going to come out. And the other thing about the thin grass, Kyle, like with Bermuda, is it always just goes to the bottom. It very rarely sits up where you can get any club on the back of the ball directly.
Yeah.
There was probably like 10% of the shots in the rough, balls in the rough, that I could see any part of, like any dimples. Can I see any dimples sticking out? Everything just went to the bottom.
Yeah.
Well, I think also to add to that, if you get a flyer out of there, and this is the thing you can't account for, but with the wind the way that it was, it's so hard to judge. Like, even if you know it's going to be a flyer, then you have to account for the wind, all these other things. So I think it's well, one, make your greens firmer, PGA of America, because that I think adds a lot of value to the way a tournament plays, right? But two, it's just I think this is right. The more variables you start adding in, whether it's wind or not being able to judge a lie or whatever, the more you stack those up, the more difficult it makes it for those guys.
I always think I 100% agree with the variable thing, right? When you have one variable, Scotty hit the ball 164 yards from a clean lie.
There's literally a YouTube video of him hitting it exactly the number. He will hit it and tell you
with
the
drivers.
Yeah.
With driver.
Yeah. Like that's
305.
No problem. Zero problem.
Right. That is like no issues at all. Then you start adding in, okay, well, is this going to jump an extra 10%? Is it going to come out dead minus 15%? Is that wind? Am I getting gust? Is it cornering me? Is it hurting? Like all this stuff where you're now just adding layers that you have to figure out makes the results more. It reminds me a lot of, I always think like completing a pass in the NFL. I don't know how any pass gets completed in the NFL. For that to happen,
I agree.
For that to happen, the snap has to go perfectly. Like 5 or 6 guys in front of you, the quarterback, have to block the 5 or 6 guys coming at them correctly and in the right direction. The quarterback and the receiver have to be on the perfect timing, knowing where the route is going. The defender has to be like a step late, and it has to be done perfectly timed. I don't know how any passes ever get completed. There's so many variables.
Rick, I remember I was covering, I used to run an Oklahoma State website, and I was covering Oklahoma State, Florida State at AT&T here in Dallas. They opened at AT&T Stadium the year after FSU won the national championship. And you watch football games on TV, and as a fan, you're like, oh, this guy sucks, can't, all this stuff. I was down on the field. For media, you go down on the field toward the end of the game, and all those things you just mentioned, with like at a speed that you can't fathom, you're like, I literally do not know how any passes ever get completed. Like, I'm never going to criticize. Well, I'm never going to overly criticize anybody again, because this is completely crazy. Greg, one thing real quick, just to clarify, were you saying that when the ball, is there more opportunity for a flyer when the ball's sitting up or when it's down?
Well, typically up, but in Bermuda, it always sits down, but it's so thin, it doesn't slow the club head down the way that like thicker bent grass rough does. When it's thicker and it's sitting up, it tells you it's a flyer. So the hard thing about the Bermuda is it's unknown, because the lies they look the same, because they all go right to the bottom.
When it's sitting up, you can see that you're going to get grass between you and the.
Yeah, you know which way the grass is going.
Yeah,
it's into me. It's going to come out dead. It's down. It's going to come out. It's very easy to develop a feel for that.
Yeah.
Much harder when in the Bermuda, because it just goes right to the bottom.
Yeah.
We made a couple of detours there. I think they were valuable, but I will just let you know that Scotty Scheffler made a couple of birdies coming in. He shot a 1 over 71 to card a 9 under score for the tournament. The man who did not feel that pressure, who did a very good job of understanding his position on the golf course, was Davis Riley. And Greg, I'll go to you on this, because KP and I kind of talked about it a little bit on HQ. I thought Davis played exactly the type of golf he needed to play. It is not his fault that Scotty did not apply the pressure early. And he was seemingly well aware of where he was at in the golf tournament, when he had to push the pedal down and when he did not, when it was an opportunity to just find a fairway and hit a green and move on. I thought he played a very well thought out final round that, spoiler alert, ended in victory.
Yes, he wasn't too defensive. He didn't look too nervous. He hit enough fairways. He hit 9 fairways. I kind of thought the over-under for him in fairways, if Davis Riley was going to win, he'd have to hit 8 or more. And he did that. Because you start getting below that, where it's half, and you can just run out of opportunities really quickly. And depending on the order in which those happen, things can get sideways quick. So he got the ball in play enough. And when he didn't, he got it to the wide side. He wasn't really short-sided very often. He didn't leave himself incredibly difficult or stressful shots. There was never a time where you felt like he was going to leave it in a bunker or make a double bogey. That was never in play, which is exactly what you have to do. And so he kept it together, looked like he's watching leaderboards, knows where he needs to be, and also understood that you can't just flip a switch out here and go crazy. You could hit great shots and not get rewarded with birdies. So he had that going for him as well, which is why this round was so smart and wise.
Yeah, and the stats are bearing out a really great Sunday round here, KP. So he drove it, much better than Scotty did. He was 14th in driving distance. He was 11th in driving accuracy. We talked about that, 9 out of 14 fairways. And then the rest of his game was certainly strong enough to get the job done. And when you had already built up that multiple shot lead, you are just ticking off the holes, okay, 17 to go, 16 to go. I'm still up. I think this swelled to like a 7-shot lead at some point. So he was able to really just kind of stay composed and keep everything moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think especially following Saturday, where it kind of came apart for him a little bit in the middle of that round. He bogeyed, 9 and 10, I think, in the middle, and Scotty's making his run at 63, and it's kind of going sideways. I thought it was a really impressive round from Davis Riley. I remember I said this on HQ, Rick, but I covered him in college. I covered the the NCAAs when Oklahoma State and Alabama played for the national championship, and it was him against I think it was against Matthew Wolf in the final pairing in the singles. And you're watching these guys play, and obviously his junior accolades are well documented, but you're watching these guys play and you're like, these are two professional golfers. Like they're just different. I mean, Oklahoma State had Hovland and they had a bunch of professional golfers, but it was just a different thing with Davis Riley and Matt Wolf in college. And it's taken him a little bit longer than some of those guys to kind of get to this point. But man, this just feels like a win that is, I know it only counts as one on your resume, but winning like the 3M in July, no offense to the good people of St. Paul, Minnesota, it's a different thing to beat Scotty Scheffler in DFW when he's playing in your pairing, going into kind of the meat of the summer. So I think this will really help him from a confidence standpoint.
Yeah, we've been spoiled with guys immediately coming out and finding success. The Davis Riley story is probably more common and the one that we would normally get. So now twice a PGA Tour winner, but one as an individual. We've well documented Zurich Classic victory from last year with Nick Hardy. This one he does by himself, 5 shots clear of everybody else. Quickly on some of the others who just kind of made a little bit of noise, or just some notables here. It was Keegan Bradley, Greg, who ended up finishing tied with Scotty for second. He shot a 3 under 67. It was one of the best rounds of the day. The best round of the day was actually Maverick McNeely going out early and shooting a 66, but Keegan Bradley shoots a 67 in the afternoon. And, we're going to talk about it. This was a pretty bad result for you considering what your bets were, but you came in quite high on Keegan.
Yes, I know you did as well, Rick, but one of the big reasons for it was he was driving the ball a lot better. Like Keegan's been hitting his irons pretty well for a while, like 6 events in a row. And the driver was not quite up to snuff, but at the PGA Championship, he gained like 6 strokes off the tee. And it just feels like this kind of golf course where it highlights the strengths of Keegan's approach play game. And his driver's coming in really good form, and he's feeling good about the putter. We just haven't seen the results on the greens yet. Felt like this was a good place where those could all come together. And as it turns out, he drove it beautifully. He led the field in strokes gained off the tee for the week and gained nearly 6 strokes again. So he has found something with the driver, no question about it. And then he finally got some putts to fall as well. He was 9th for the week. He gained over 4.5 strokes putting. And that was really the key. That's why Keegan turns this from a top 25 into a let's just say near win.
Yeah, we'll call it whatever you want. It was 5 shots off the lead, but he did tie Scotty Scheffler, something that not many have been able to do over the past couple of months. Colin Morikawa, one of the few guys, I believe, I'm just scrolling through here, 4 rounds in the 60s, 68, 69, 67, 68 KP. I don't know, man. He is very difficult to figure out. His Saturday round, he went out in 38 and came in 29. And then he followed that up by starting even par on his front 9 today and 2 under on his second 9. So it does feel like we're getting more and more good rounds out of Colin, and we might be close to another breaking point.
I don't know that anybody... maybe Brooks. I don't know that anybody else confuses me more than Colin Morikawa. Like like this is gonna sound absolutely insane. I find myself saying, "Is he good?" more than anybody else who's actually as good, right?
Dude, and the stats don't align with the eye test. The eye test doesn't align with the stats. The things he says are insane. I don't know anything. He's got shoes on his dog. I don't know anything.
He's got shoes on his dog. It's so confounding to me. I think what's weird, Rick, is he is and maybe this is where I kind of net out. He comes out on tour, and remember, he didn't miss a cut for like
23 events or something.
Yeah, he was tracking down Tiger's record.
It was crazy. And so you're like, okay, this guy's calling card is consistency, right? This is what he's going to be known for. This is who he is. And now I almost feel like he's gone completely the other way and become one of the more inconsistent players, which is not a bad thing. Like, if we've talked about this a million times, if you're inconsistent, as long as your inconsistencies are very dramatic, you're fine. You're going to win a bunch. Like, you're going to have amazing weeks where you win the Open Championship or the PGA at Harding Park. And I think that's a little bit of what's going on here, where he's having kind of a bad approach play season if you just look at the numbers. But then all of a sudden, top 25 in approach play at the PGA, top 10 in approach play at Colonial. And you get something that is incongruent with everything else that a lot of the other things that you've seen from him so far this year. So I think maybe that's where the confusion comes in, but would it surprise you guys if he won Pinehurst?
No.
Would it surprise you if he missed the cut at Pinehurst?
No.
Exactly.
The one thing about Colin is he has this. It makes me feel a little bit. It answers some of the confusion. He's gone back to Rick Sessinghaus, and he's all they're doing is hitting fades. And if there's one thing that's going on, he's hitting fades that fade too much. But a fade that fades too much is a whole lot better than a fade that draws, right? Like that Dustin Johnson video from years ago. The most important thing when you hit a fade is that you hit a fade. And so Colin's kind of on that path. Now it's just tightening that down, like shoring up the contact a little bit. And there's confidence in these results, these top fives he keeps piling in there. I think he is getting closer. And the move back to Rick Sessinghaus is really the thing that makes me believe that there's something real brewing. They're working towards something.
I want to talk about one more guy, but we have him a lot on our betting card, so we can use that as an opportunity to talk about him there. It's Sepp Straka. We'll get to him in just a little bit. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to recap those wagers, which will allow us to talk about more golfers. We will talk about the one and done results, and then we'll see where we go from there. But for now, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
And we're back. I have learned that some other countries have their own golf triple crown, because golf is not only played in the United States. Kyle Porter, who thinks that and knows that. You're on mute, so you can't even defend yourself.
Don't drag me into this. I was not the one who brought this up.
There is a South African triple crown, which is winning the South African Open, South African Masters, and South African PGA Championship. That's been won twice.
I bet there's did Trevor do it?
Trevor did not.
You got to be Gary Player.
That's one, 1979. That's number 2, 1992. Yes, well done.
I bet there's an Australian triple crown.
I was thinking the same thing.
Funny you guys bring that up, because there is the Australian Open, the Australian Masters, and the Australian PGA Championship. That has been won once.
Peter Thompson.
No.
Greg Norman.
No. I'll give you the year. 2005.
Adam Scott.
No.
Michael Campbell.
Aaron
No.
Baddeley.
No.
What was his name?
Steve Elkington.
No.
No, it's
What was his name?
he had, there was some tragedy that he had.
I remember that differently, but maybe I'm remembering it wrong.
Stuart Appleby.
That is correct.
I think it's
No.
White.
Sorry. I always confuse these two. It's Robert Allenby.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, now all of that conversation makes sense now.
I confuse them too.
I always confuse those two. The correct answer is Robert Allenby.
Okay, I got two things real quick. One is I think producer Josh brought this up. The Morikawa stuff is also confusing because he's putting really, really well right now, but not winning. Right. And so we always say like, oh, if he putts, he wins. The other thing, like in conjunction with that, Jordan Spieth is, as he would say, driving the piss out of the ball.
Yes.
And not even contending.
I know.
And so you
like leading and driving accuracy through 3 rounds,
which is, if you followed Spieth, insane.
Mm-hmm.
And those two guys, those are the things that historically they've struggled with. And they're doing them very well, but not winning, which I think brings about some real confusion about how to interpret all this. The second thing is I pulled up the 2018 NCAAs. So this is the individual leaderboard.
Wow. Okay. These are some names here.
Brock Everett won I guess it was in a playoff. I don't think he even plays professional golf anymore.
I don't think he does either. I feel like he came up somewhere recently.
He was not producer Josh says he does not play golf. We've done this before.
We have sideswiped Brock Everett before, and I believe he is a coach at Augusta now.
That sounds right. But this leaderboard is crazy, right? You've got so many pros: Doug Gim, Scheffler, Matthew Wolff, Norman Zhang, Hovland, Doc Redman, Eckroat, Lee Hodges, Davis Riley finished T29 in the individual.
Nick Hardy.
I mean, this is, you see this at NCAAs every year. Eventually guys go on to play.
Will Gordon
on the PGA Tour.
And there was even some guys that like are on the PGA, but like Blaine Hale has a PGA Tour card. He's on that list. So Isaiah Salinda is like bounces back and forth between PGA and Korn Ferry. Like there's just a lot of high level golf.
Here's the championship match. It was Hovland against Lee Hodges.
Beat down 4-3.
Matt Wolff against Davis Riley.
4-3.
And then Christopher Ventura against, who is that for?
Wilson Furr.
PGA Tour card.
Austin Eckroat against Dinah Shore. Who is that? D Shore?
Dinah Shore. That's funny. I have no idea who that is.
And then Zach Boshu, who he won 8 and 7.
Yikes.
I mean, this was just a rout. And Alabama was really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they've got a bunch of pros and they got smoked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was a good.
Yeah. I mean, you got 2 PGA Tour winners on top. Wilson Furr is a PGA Tour player. The next guy's got a major on the LPGA named after him.
Yeah. So this is star-studded.
I mean, I didn't see that coming.
And they got waxed.
That's good. Yeah. So this was a fun one to attend.
While we're doing footnotes, those 2 Triple Crowns that I referenced, South Africa and Australia, cannot be won currently because the South African Masters was discontinued in 2011 and the Australian Masters was discontinued in 2015. So we're going to need some new tournaments to get those back. It was just Greg and I on the show. Oh, we did we didn't do a Tuesday show.
Yeah.
Right. We did an extended Monday show. So we have our picks. We did okay, Greg. You got jammed here. So Keegan Bradley over Brian Harmon, easy win for me. You pushed Tom Kim over Minwoo Lee. We both got our best.
By the way, Rick, on that Tom Kim and Minwoo Lee, not only did they shoot the same exact score every round, 69, 68, 68, 74 for both of them. Minwoo Lee hold a chip on 18 that was on the back edge of the hole and it fell back in last second.
It fell in at 12 o'clock.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a bad beat, but it's a bad push.
Yeah. It's just Tom had it. Anyway.
We both got our best bets right. Tom Hoagie, top 20, Sepp Straka, top 20. So all good there. Your your two out, or I had Sepp Straka as an outright and Max Homa. So one close, one not so much. Your two outrights, both finished T2. So it was Scotty and Keegan to win without Scotty Scheffler. So all you needed was Scotty to win, Keegan to finish second. You would have cashed both of these. If Keegan wins, you would have at least gotten one of them. Davis Riley spoils the party and bonks you on both.
I just can't believe it. Who would have thought I needed a Keegan Bradley without Scheffler, without Davis Riley? And that's probably not even available. But boy, and he routed him. You know, he beat him by 5 and cruised in on Sunday. So this is a tough one to swallow. I'm glad, Morikawa didn't slip in the middle and kind of ruin it. But to have those guys both T2 is kind of hysterical, and it also pains me.
It's tough. It's tough. Well, good job. You handicapped it. You handicapped it well. Just didn't shake out in your favor.
This is betting. You get nothing.
That's right. Know when to lay up. Have a gameplan.org.
Right.
All the other items. The one and done. I will tell you this, Greg. You won the week. So that's good. You and I, baby. Sepp Straka, 323,618. It's not a signature event. It's a tie for 5th. A 4-way tie for 5th. But a win's a win.
It gets me over the I think this moved me over the $11 million mark, breaking thresholds.
It did.
I kind of wish I went with Keegan. Maybe that's a little greedy, but we were so on Keegan. But hey, we wanted to get a little Sepp Straka action in there, and it paid off. So yeah, this turned out pretty well.
Keegan got, that 2-way tie for second is a lot more than I thought. He and Scotty got 809,000. First was only 1.6. That's pretty.
That is, yeah.
It's a lot. Patrick and Mark. This is a shame. This is a true shame. Took Harris English and they both missed the cut. Wrong. That just hurts. That hurts deep down. Josh took Billy Horschel, 70,866. KP, second best total of the week. Christian Bezadenhout, 120,835. And from what I understand, you got that pick in right before the buzzer.
Yeah, before is one way to say it.
What's another way? After?
The other way to say it is that the buzzer was being held. I mean, I'm obviously no threat to anyone. So how did I get $4 million behind second to last?
Because I won.
Happened quick.
We had a lot of what was the last the PGA Championship? No.
Yeah.
We had like the week before the PGA. Oh, we all had Rory at Quail Hollow. Except you.
Oh, I forgot about that. And it was like $1 billion event. So
yeah, that's right.
Great.
Well, there's a couple more $1 billion events coming up. Next week is Canada. We're going back to Hamilton. Last time we went back to Hamilton was 2019. Rory won there. I think we were there in 2012 as well. This event rotates around. It has historically been a very good one. Growing every year, Greg. There will be a rink hole again. And those Canadians, they love themselves some golf.
Yes, they really do. And that's part of the reason why the event has grown. When you have events like not only Rory winning and continuing to go back, but Nick Taylor doing what he did last year, that grows the allure of the Canadian Open. It's also right in the heart of major championship season. So it feels like a big deal. You have the President's Cup coming to Montreal this fall. A lot to play for from the Canadians, and the Canadian fans are really excited. They'll be pulling hard for all the Maple Leafs out there in the rink and on the other holes as well.
Oh, are the Maple Leafs still in the playoffs?
No.
Oh,
no. Panthers, Rangers in the East.
Okay.
My Stars.
Oilers, Stars in the West.
Wow. Okay. Okay, things are. Wait, there's a lot of Dallas action then. So the Mavericks are still in. The Stars are still in. The Rangers are usually pretty good.
My Mavs and my Stars and my Rangers
And your Cowboys. Oh, the Cowboys stink, don't
and
they?
my Cowboys.
All right.
I got a buddy who works for the Rangers that brought the ring to show some of the kids at church today.
Oh, that's cool.
They were fired up.
I'll tell you what, the first time I saw someone handed me a World Series ring and I put it on, I was like 25 and I was fired up. It was like I was 8. So I can only imagine.
It's so heavy.
It's awesome.
It's crazy heavy. And he said the player rings, like the top comes off and it does I think it shoots confetti. I mean, it does all kinds of stuff.
Fireworks and
yeah.
Wow. That's
by the way, Greg, my favorite thing about being on site with Rick is you're about to go, like you're kind of prepping or looking on your phone at stats or writing stuff down, and you're about to go live, and you can say anything to Rick, literally anything, and he'll say, "That's right." Like, Rick, we're about to be on in front of 50 million people. That's right.
That's right.
It's the best. It's I love it. It's so good.
It's the go-to. That's right.
Speaking of, I don't know if it'll be 50 million people, but something's happening where they keep putting us on TV. So we're going back on TV next week. This will be, Josh, you'll have to tell me, Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're going back on the network. And this will be that mid-round Friday Canadian Open cut sweat / round update. We'll have the scorecards and all that fun stuff. So they're letting us do it, Greg. They must like it.
Yeah, I guess something's working. 'Tis the season, and it's a lot of fun. That one last week was a really good time. Yeah, it's fun to get a little live action. Look at the leaders. I mean, I don't think we talked about Davis Riley once, so there's that.
Great job.
This is like KP. I've probably told you this before, but my mom's probably watching right now. Like, she's probably watching on YouTube right now, but she's watching it on her TV. So she always says like, "Oh, Rick, I saw you on TV." And I'm like, "No, you're not seeing me on TV. This is her. She could actually see me on TV this time."
We had a discussion about this, Greg, at the PGA. We played golf one afternoon. Me and Rick and Joe and producer Josh. And I asked the guys, I said, "Do you say, like, when people ask, yes, I'm on TV, or do you," because it's almost just shorthand for like a big screen, right?
Right. It's one way to look at it.
Which is, I think technically it's not correct. Although in this instance, it is correct.
Yes. And your mom is not necessarily wrong. But if she sees you this Friday, she'll be right no matter how you look at it.
Totally.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's easier to tell people, well, I'm on it's a streaming network, and
you're toast. Like, you've already lost them.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's like sometimes I go on TV.
I only recently started saying it because I guess I'm an idiot. I just realized, like, this is way easier than being like, well, it's if you go to cbssports.com/HQ.
It's like, okay, well, do you have a tablet? That would be a good place to start.
Oh, that's great.
Monday,
iOS or Droid?
Right. I'll send you the link. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the Canadian Open. We're going north of the border, which should be a good time. Producer Josh does all the hard work behind the scenes. Greg DuCharme is available at The Real GFD. Kyle Porter is available at Kyle Porter CBS, and you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.